Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Dr. Lori Nandial, and I am a graduate of the University of Cincinnati, a clinician with UC Health working with the University of Cincinnati students. I'm also board certified in integrative medicine, and I'm a faculty member with the Osher Center for Integrative Health here at the University of Cincinnati. The center aims to improve the health of our community healthcare through innovative, internationally recognized research, education, clinical practice, and community engagement focused on integrative health and wellness. This virtual lifestyle medicine and wellness series happens several times a year and is an opportunity for the community to hear from our expert Osher Center faculty on key topics of wellness. Kelly Lyle, our Education Program Director, will be monitoring the chat for any questions you'd like to ask our presenter this evening. And we'll have that Q&A portion at the end if there's time. So please feel free to put your questions directly in the chat, and Kelly will help us coordinate that at the end. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mladen Golubic, MD, PhD. He is our medical director for the Osher Center for Integrative Health and is an exceptional leader in the fields of lifestyle and integrative medicine who brings a wealth of clinical research, educational experience to the University of Cincinnati and UC Health. He has worked in the fields of immunogenetics and molecular and cancer biology, contributing to the understanding of the interactions between the environment and our genes. His clinical work focuses now on lifestyle-related chronic diseases. As an internist, Dr. Golubic has practiced and directed educational and research activities within integrative and lifestyle medicine since 2009, with a group of exceptional lifestyle medicine professionals, dietitians, chefs, yoga instructors, exercise physiologists, meditation teachers, and so on, within the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic until he joined us here at UC in January of 2021, where he has been instrumental in the creation of the UC Cancer Wellness Clinic with a cancer survivorship team. He also sees patients at UC Gardner Neurologic Institute and runs the group medical visit program. Dr. Golubic practices what he preaches. You'll always find him taking the stairs and following a plant-based diet. And now I'll pass the mic to Dr. Golubic to share with us about food and pharmacy.
Thank you very much, Lori. That was really sweet. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I think the weather outside seems pretty good. Nice fall evening. So I'm very appreciative that you decided to spend time with us here. I would like to express my gratitude to my team, Susie McDonald, Kelly, and our marketing expert, Emily, who really helped organize this presentation. So I'll start sharing the screen, and we will hopefully have time. I plan to have at least 15-20 minutes at the end to answer the questions that you might have. Are you able to see my slide here, the title slide? Because
looks good.
Yes, thank you. So let me forward this if I can. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so food as medicine is just one component of what we do, as Dr. Nandial has mentioned. Movement, managing, relieving stress, nurturing positive social connections, as well as doing research and education are really the key components of what we do here at our center. So these are the key elements of self-care, of what each of us can do to sustain good health, to maybe prevent the disease, and even if we are affected by any of illnesses, chronic illnesses that are driven by lifestyle, to even reverse those. So, as it was mentioned on the presentation prior to the start of our program, We had a presentation by Dr. Mladen on sleep. I'll be covering nutrition today, and this is really introduction. It's very big topic, and it will open the door to further discussion, further presentations. And you have seen we'll have a professional chef, Stephanie Mitchell, in March to do the culinary medicine. And then we will have presentation on stress relief that is coming in January and cover all the other components. Any of these aspects of our self-care can help us maintain health, reverse the disease, prevent the disease. And these are some of the mechanisms that are metabolic, pathophysiological mechanisms that regulate our health. And we will talk about some of those. So, early 21st century, when you look at what is really causing suffering and death among us, is cardiovascular disease, cancer, chronic respiratory disease, diabetes. Now, this is from very recent publication by the World Health Organization, and you can see that 1/3 of deaths is due to cardiovascular disease. And most of it is preventable, as we will see. So, what are the options? How do we deal with this? And I could not resist not putting this slide here because it caught my attention. It was published last week in British Medical Journal Lancet, which is really the top medical journal along with New York Journal of Medicine from US. And what these authors actually report is they argue that there were several large randomized clinical trials done where patients, where individuals healthy or the one affected with the disease, were taking pill that contains several pills together. So usually there was a pill that lowers blood pressure along with the one that would reduce cholesterol and or without aspirin. And so what they argue is we are not doing much. There are more and more people with cardiovascular disease, more and more people who are dying, not just in the US, but worldwide. So let's focus on polypill, giving medications. Now, to me, this looks like that. Without addressing the underlying causes, and this is our lifestyle, as we will see, putting more medicine, more prescription medications really is not going to be the solution. It could be one component, and I think it's wonderful that we have amazing, powerful medications that we didn't have even 10, 15 years ago that now make the care for patients with cardiovascular disease exceptionally successful. But we should not forget what is underlying cause. So outside of New Zealand, US is the second. There are 2 countries in the world that freely advertise medications, prescription medications. And as you can see, this is what our society does. Now, for us in integrative medicine field, there is also a lot of efforts into, I don't want to take prescription medications, I want to take natural. I want to take compounds isolated from broccoli. This is an example here on the top. You can see now you can get the benefits of cruciferous vegetables in I3C capsules, indole-3 carbinol. It's one of the phytonutrients, phytochemicals found in cruciferous vegetables. So as you will see, this is such a naive, such a ridiculous way to approach the complexity of the food by packing it into the pill. So this is just an example where we are coming with this more and more pills, more medications. This is one of the patients who I have seen, and she was taking 35 of those supplements. Those in blue are prescription medications. Everything else can be avoided. Clearly, there is opportunity to use some of those as needed, but clearly that's not a solution. Yeah. So this is the option 2, which I think it's a little bit harder. It requires a lot of engagement from our patients, and that is to really go and address the root causes of those illnesses. As you can see here, And there were several publications addressing this. What's the combination? What's the contribution of genetic factors? What's the contribution of environmental factors, primarily lifestyle, the foods that we eat, sleep, movement, stress, etc. As you can see, we could prevent 70% of colon cancer, 70% of stroke, 80+% of coronary artery disease, and 95+% of type 2 diabetes. It's quite amazing. Now, what do we need to do? Nothing extraordinary. Number one is prudent diet. Prudent diet is something along predominantly plant-based diet, like Mediterranean diet, that is low in intake of saturated fat and trans fats, which do not exist anymore in the food supply for the past couple of years, and that are low in so-called glycemic load, that are not loaded with sugar. Anything that is white bread, white pasta, white rice, white flour is out of question. Yeah, so if we can focus on those things in the diet, that would be one component. Physical activity, again, no need to run a marathon or do something extraordinary. It's 30 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity, which is about 100 steps per minute. You can, go for a brisk walk after the lecture, and you can kind of time yourself and see that would be the speed. That would be brisk walking. Non-smoking, that's a big one, and keeping our body mass index, keeping our weight in a normal range below 25. So if we would do 4 of those things, and here we are not even talking about regulating our chronic stress, we are not talking about sleep, we are not talking about social interactions, social support. Just those factors, we could avoid developing those diseases and dying. So Dr. Kim Williams is past president of the American College of Cardiology. And so he gave a grand rounds here at the University of Cincinnati last May, and at a conference previous year, 2020, he posed that question and he presented data how we could put cardiologists out of business in 10 years, because vast majority of illness in the heart, especially coronary artery disease, is caused by modifiable lifestyle factors that anybody can change and improve. Besides heart disease, cancer, there is profound benefit of lifestyle modifications on cognitive function, diabetes, chronic pain. That's another unaddressed issue that where what we do with our self-care plays important role, and of course weight management. So here is where we are. So if you take 10,000 individuals, adults in the US, and you ask them, how would you describe your diet quality? Is it excellent? Is it good? Very good? Is it poor? I'm not eating very well. And so 10,000 of them were asked, and here you see the results. 8% said my diet is excellent, very good, 22%, and only 6% said it's poor. It's really, I'm not eating well. Yeah? But then for the same group of people, you had their data when they filled out the questionnaires, standardized food frequency questionnaires, to see how what really they are eating, how their diet looks like. And it was measured according to what the USDA considers healthy diet, fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans and nuts and seeds and fish and poultry and very little red meat, and so you get a score. So when you do this, you find that only, I don't see here the numbers that are covered, 8% were, I'm moving this, 1% was excellent, and then 3% very good, 9% were good, and 70% were poor. So when you use like objective data, you find this huge discrepancy in what people think that they are doing with the diet and what really is happening. So it's a big gap what we think is healthy diet and what we do. The question often that I hear is, I'm 55, I'm 65. So what does it make a difference if I kind of change my diet? That does really, really impact my longevity, my quality of life, my burden of disease. And And the answer is, yeah, clearly it's much better to choose healthier eating earlier in life than later. But you can see here this Harvard Medical School run prospective study where you follow healthy nurses and health professionals. And you can see that those who follow consistently maintain those high scores in healthy eating, they had much lower death rates compared to those who had low scores. And then those who improved during these 12 years of study, the more they improve, the more they close to the healthier, the better outcomes they have. So it's never too late. Clearly, it's better to start early. These are just some issues when it comes to healthy diet. What is healthy diet? How can we study it? We can do very well experiments with animals because we can control. In humans, we don't do that. It's very hard. We don't need human child. Foods is very complex, has many compounds. It's very difficult to measure what's eaten. And even harder is to calculate what's the available nutrients, how much is absorbed, how much is used. And the most complicated part is that those chronic diseases that are influenced by our lifestyle choices develop over decades. They do not, it's not like you eat one meal and the following day you develop diabetes or obesity or high blood pressure. So the National Institute of Health has issued this strategic plan for the next decade. This was in 2020. And just to understand what we humans need to eat, when we need to eat, which kind of foods, how can we implement it? And really the most important for us here is using food as medicine. I think this is really something that caught my eye, food as medicine by the National Institute of Health. So we will know a lot because there is now interest and investment into understanding those influences of genetics, food choices, and which kind of foods we eat and how. So at this time, people somehow gravitate to that fiction section in the bookstores. Clearly, we want to stay in the non-fiction that is science, evidence-based. So on our planet, everything what's happening is powered by the sun. And we can kind of debate those numbers that I show you here. That's from the book by Carl Sagan and Andrew Yang, where if you look at all the energy that hits the ground that is covered by plants, photosynthetic plants, you ask the question, how much of that energy gets converted into organic molecules, into sugars, fiber, everything what plants make? And it's 0.1%. Now, some people would say it's 1% or 2%. It doesn't really matter. The point is that when the herbivore eats that plant, only 10% of that energy in organic molecules end up in that herbivore. And then when herbivore is eaten by the carnivore, again, only about 10% of that energy is obtained. Yeah? So Carl Sagan wrote here, organisms at the top of the food chain seem inefficient to the point of irresponsibility. Clearly, we cannot blame polar bears to be irresponsible, but somehow we humans can kind of decide whether this is irresponsible or not. We don't know how it's on other planets, but on our world, this is the tree of life. Yeah? Here we are in eukaryotic cells, and you see here, I highlighted those, when it says one branch on that tree is animals, then next to it, fungi, and then plants. And that will be the theme in the story that I'll try to tell you. However, we are closely linked with archaea and bacteria, as we will see. And it's not just us, it is plants, it is soil. So this is how it looks. You know, when you look at the plant, you say, okay, there are leaves, there is, you know, chlorophyll, photosynthetic, they get energy from the sun, they get CO2, water through the roots. And here we go. We make those organic molecules, sugars, and etc. However, the story is way more complex. As you can see here, there is the whole environment under under the surface where there are roots, and it's this rhizosphere. Yeah, and what's happening here, that their soil contains variety of nutrients, minerals, phosphate and potassium and nitrogen, etc. But the plants themselves cannot get this stuff. So throughout evolution, they developed that symbiotic relationship with fungi and bacteria. And so if you take the fine microscopy of the roots of the plants, and in this case was corn, you can see those little blobs here, and that's the fungus. That's the mycorrhizal fungi. And those are the organisms that actually get those nitrogen and phosphate and other things that they need, and then they get carbon. They get carbon from the plants. So it has developed into amazing symbiotic relationship. So when we look at the plant, we have to think about this is plant plus microorganisms that are there. We humans are also superorganisms. If you would just look at all the genes that we have, we will find that it's only 10% of it, 90% are bacterial genes. Enormous diversity, complexity, and metabolic activity. And this association is very old. It's evolutionarily linked and established. Whenever something is evolutionarily old, it means it's important. And there is the whole ecosystem of those organisms communicating with each other, communicating with us, and influencing a variety of things. And depending where in the body you look, you find different profiles of those microorganisms. So we are really super beings, our own eukaryotic cells, and plus all those microbes. So what should be eating? And this is very simple and yet powerful message that I think resonates with all of us in lifestyle medicine, and was said by Michael Pollan. Basically, eat food, not food-like substances, real food. I would say mostly plants, and then not too much. Because I think it's very important that you can even overdo on plant foods, especially grains and beans. You cannot overdo on green leafy vegetables. So, what are we eating? Recent surveys have shown that the young kids, I think the ages, I don't see here, were between 2 and 19, yeah, consume about 67% of daily calories. The number should come, and for whatever reason, it's blocked. Here we go. 67% of those calories come from ultra-processed foods. And this picture here was taken in Cleveland area, in one of the schools, in a quite wealthy area. And the chef, Jim Korko, and I were visiting the school, and they wanted to impress us how well they are feeding their kids. And you can see all of this stuff. It's really something that we consider ultra-processed food. A big misconception is that if you are a sophisticated person, you don't want to eat unrefined foods, while the opposite is completely true. So here are all those foods from plants that we could be eating, that we should be eating to maintain optimal health. We'll focus on vegetables and fruits. I'll mention some other things just sporadically. So why vegetables and fruits? CDC does those surveys about the consumption, and we should be consuming about 2 cups, 2 servings of fruits, and 2 to 3 servings of vegetables a day. And as you can see here in Ohio, fruit consumption is less than 10%, and vegetable is 7.4%. So that means that 90% of people do not get enough fruits and vegetables. The story is even more more, I would say, surprising or depressing. When we know that evidence tells us that we should be eating 10 servings of fruits and vegetables. This study, published in the International Journal of Epidemiology, has been so-called meta-analysis where you put together 95 different studies that look at that question. And what do you find? You come to about 10 servings of fruits and vegetables. And this is not that difficult to achieve. Yeah? So many of you probably consume 5 or more servings of fruits and vegetables, because usually people who are interested in nutrition, they come to such presentations. Yeah, our challenge is to reach those who do not have excitement. However, if you are in the group that doesn't get, I hope this will kind of nudge you to do that. There are many mechanisms that have been established, and clearly we are just scratching the surface, how fruits and vegetables are protective, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. They really regulate variety of processes in the cell, regulate the cell division. Some of these compounds can remove carcinogens, cancer-causing chemicals from our body. They can detoxify, they change the hormone metabolism, as well as they can help repair the genes that regularly, as part of aging, get damaged. And of course, the really important one is they regulate the health of the microbes in our bodies, especially in the large intestine. This will not be on any quiz. This is just an example of understanding how some of those phytochemicals modulate beneficial things in the cell. So here is one of the things about antioxidants. If you take 3/4 of a cup of cooked kale, yeah, and you said, okay, let's see the content of antioxidants, and you said, okay, there are 40 milligrams of vitamin C and 10 international units of vitamin E. These are 2 antioxidant vitamins that everybody knows. And then you ask question, how many free radicals? Because antioxidants remove compounds called free radicals. Those are those oxidative products of our metabolism. How many free radicals they can remove? And you do the experiment. You take the scale, you blend it, you put it in a test tube and say, okay, let's see how many free radicals will be removed. When you do this, you find that kale has removed free radicals as 600 milligrams of vitamin C and 800 units of vitamin E would do, which tells you that vitamin C and vitamin E are just tiny little fraction of antioxidant potential of kale. And many different studies show different things, different rankings. People argue whether, black raspberries are better than red, whether blueberries are champions, or kale or spinach. It really doesn't matter. It is vegetables and fruits. Anyway, you turn it around, you find those champions there. Yeah? And all kinds of high quality work was done when you eat kale and then you measure antioxidant potential in the blood. So this is fairly well established, and many of these papers are older ones. So, feast on phytochemicals. Yeah, those are those compounds that are in the plant foods that we said, okay, they're not vitamins, they're not minerals, they are not protein, carbohydrates, or fat. So what do they do? Well, now we know that they do many positive things in the body. Here will be a question, if we could get a poll, how many of these so-called polyphenolic compounds, there are many different families depending on their structure, there are in the foods that we eat, vegetables and fruits and legumes and grains. There are about 8,000. If you look at the recent reviews, they said there are about 8,000 identified polyphenolic compounds that we get in our diet. And that's why I mentioned this idea that you will pack one compound in a pill and you will see the miracle cures. It's just really mind-boggling that somebody would think that way. So here are the foods that you want to eat: apples, plums, tomatoes, turmeric, red wine, chocolate berries. Everybody can find something that is excited about. Flaxseed, olive oil. Look at those. These are other groups. Isothiocyanates, we'll talk about this a little bit more. Indoles, garlic, onion, cruciferous vegetables, cabbage, collard green, mustard green, etc. Inflammation is another one. Yeah? Inflammation is believed to be the underlying cause of many chronic diseases, from chronic pain to heart disease, to certain types of cancer, autoimmune disorders, obesity, you name it. So, eating fruits and vegetables, as you can see here, the more fruits and vegetables people consume, the lower level of inflammation they have, as measured by so-called C-reactive protein. Clearly, the key is that component of fiber and variety of these antioxidants. Legumes, in this case soy, unrefined soy foods, tempeh, tofu, edamame, miso, they have been shown to reduce inflammation. So the point here is we really need to take care of our microbes, and the way to do this is to feed them foods that they need, that we cannot digest. We don't have enzymatic machinery to digest dietary fiber. They do, and they produce a variety of beneficial compounds that affect every cell in the body. It's not just in the gut. If we eat foods without fiber, and those everything that comes from animals and refined products, refined grains, we just absorb sugars. We starve our bacteria. They shrink in their diversity and in their function, and we are at high risk of developing any of those Western diseases. In fact, if you look at about 1,000-year-old coprolites, the feces that was, they call it here ancient poop, and you look at the profile of which kind of bacterial species are there, you find that we had like big extinction. It's like 40% of the bugs that we humans had, and we don't suddenly have, because we changed so dramatically the way we live. Yeah? The things that I would emphasize, if you really want to play with reducing inflammation for a variety of reasons that you might desire, those are the champions: rosemary, ginger, turmeric, holy basil, oregano, green tea. These are some of the well-established compounds. They inhibit cyclooxygenase 2, they inhibit 5-lipoxygenase. Those are the enzymes that produce inflammatory products that cause trouble in the body. Cyclooxygenase 2, everybody heard about Celebrex, celecoxib, that has been used to help relieve the inflammation and joint aches. And it's not fair, you see, if you look here at ginger, you just say, okay, melatonin, ginger rolls, there are several of them. Yeah, there are many of them. Yeah, there are 20 of them identified compounds that inhibit 5-lipoxygenase. There are 17, probably now even more, that inhibit cyclooxygenase 2. Here is your celecoxib, yeah, in ginger root. So, the long story short, what we really try to do as a society, as individuals, is move from here, from our current ultra-processed, meat-based, refined foods, closer to unrefined whole foods eating pattern. Yeah, and one of the reasons for all these lectures and programs that we do is really to emphasize how important that is. So, from farm to fork, from farm to pharmacy, from farm to our inner pharmacy, to our biochemistry, everything starts with the soil. Yeah, without soil, the plants would not grow, they would not interact with fungi, they would not interact with bacteria. And here I'm quoting Franklin Roosevelt, in which we are fully aware today that this was absolutely essential. Unfortunately, about 80% of all land that we can use to grow food goes to feed livestock. And when you look at how that is detrimental to the health of the soil, you really see that we need to change. We need to shift, number one, what we eat. We need to be more plant-based, nutrient-efficient diets. Yeah, so we need to use foods that we can directly consume rather than run it through the animals. Clearly, we need to have better technology and maintaining the soil fertility, stability for sustainability. There are a number of studies done looking at how much topsoil we are losing, because we have this very intensive agriculture, monoculture, and This was from a recent paper where they looked and they said, we'll lose in the American Midwest, which has really the super fertile soil, about 2 millimeters per year. 2 millimeters, 1 inch is 25 millimeters. Yeah, it's a tenth of an inch. Yeah, you would say, okay, tenth of an inch. However, when you look at this is enormous amount, and it's apparently double what the USDA said should be in order to maintain the soil in a good shape so that it can enable us to grow food for years and centuries. Yeah. And one of these studies recently came out where they looked at basically almost all countries on the planet that have any data, how these nutrients from the farm end up through the processing, through the transportation, to the food waste, to the consumption, and where we are failing, where we are not increasing, where we are not achieving the goals, nutritional goals, and those are listed down here: vitamin D, E, A, B12, C, sodium, calcium, iron, potassium, zinc, and folate. Many of those can be easily done with plant foods. Increasing CO2 in atmosphere is another component that actually leads to less content of zinc and iron and protein in wheat and rice and peas and soybeans. Yeah, now the corn and sorghum are somehow still resistant to that. We don't know what will happen with this. So if this would be interactive, I would ask you which picture is showing organic farm, and the answer is both organic. You can do it as shown on the left. That's the Muddy Fork Farm near Cleveland, and this is a mega farm that does it organically. There are a number of papers everybody tries to understand, is it better to eat organic or not? Clearly it depends what you are looking at. I mean, there are 8,000 of flavonoids, which one do you pick? Which one do you measure? So we study, what we can measure. It's like a tip of the iceberg. If we can measure this, then we make stories. So I'll just show you here. This is for those of you who are interested in looking deeper into it. That's from one of the studies. If you measure ascorbic acid, vitamin C, you can look into berries, and in this case also corn, and you can say, okay, it looks like if you do it organic, and even organic and sustainable, that's even like a notch higher. You get higher levels of certain nutrients. Then you will find other papers that say, it didn't make the difference for the peaches if I looked at this nutrient versus that one. So clearly, there is less exposure to pesticides, and I think it's very important for the youngsters, for children, because we really do not understand how that affects their development and brain and metabolic function. This is one of the studies. Clearly, there is a lot of this. Is enormous field. That's a long-run study in Switzerland, 21 years. So they had different plots, and they would grow 3 things: potato, wheat, and clover. And they found that the yield in organic plots was 20% lower. Now, the input of fertilizers and energy was significantly reduced. Pesticides input was reduced 97%. Yeah? The most important one was this enhanced soil fertility and increased biodiversity. You had this better milieu of roots with fungi, with bacteria, and that is what sustains health of the soil on the long run. So, using more of our inorganic fertilizers has been actually shown. This was a study done in a farm where they followed the content of carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus for 150 years. Yeah, it's the longest run ecological study. And so what they find that this symbiotic relationship between microorganisms and plants has been disturbed when you do this over a century of using the fertilizers. For those of you who are interested in eating organic, Environmental Working Group has a list here of 30 dozen. Those are the ones that are the most contaminated with pesticides. So if you ever, plan to do this, to eat organic, those would be the good ones. I would not spend any money on eating organic on the right side because they basically have traces of it. I will skip this because we are running out of time. Essentially, this was one of the superbly done studies that shows that it takes a lot of land to produce animal foods that humans consume. That takes much less to grow veggies and fruits and grains and legumes and seeds. It takes a lot of land to produce cocoa, coffee, and tea. But even if you put all of this together, the more plant-based you are, you can achieve those goals. This was done in Germany. You essentially can, if they would do the equivalence, how much land you use in South America and other areas, you could fully meet all the nutritional requirements that are recommended. So this is this incredible thing what we are doing. We just go and really damage the lungs of our planet in Amazonian rainforest so that we could grow soybeans, and then we base them, we feed them to the animals, we lose all the fiber that is there, we lose all kinds of beneficial phytochemicals. And in the process, we really do a lot of damage, and it's very expensive. So many of the animal foods come loaded with compounds that we do not want to have. Those are those endocrine disruptors, pesticides, etc. And then the other thing that I will just mention here in one slide, it makes a big difference how we prepare foods. It's a good idea if you boil any vegetable, try to do it quickly, maybe 5 minutes. Steaming is the best. Some of the nutrients like lycopene and other carotenoids actually get more active if we expose them to heat in the presence of fat, like sauteing, tomatoes and etc. But this could be separate lecture. Chew well. When we use these compounds, this is sulforaphane glucosinate. It has a glucose bound. It has different properties. It's water soluble, it's heat stable, doesn't react, doesn't do anything. But when we break the cell, when we chew it, we release that myrosinase enzyme that cleaves that glucose, and now you have active anti-carcinogenic compound. And it's very heat sensitive. So you don't want to boil any of your cruciferous vegetables more than 5 minutes. Just steam them or boil them up to 5 minutes. Chew very well. This is the champion in eating collard greens. Clearly 2.5 pounds, 17.5 seconds, not a good idea. We don't need to be like a Popeye. Clearly, don't chew like these guys. This is the major league eating, which probably you never heard that it exists. Yes, but it does. So don't eat hot dogs, don't eat processed meats. Food waste, I think we can all do much better job here, paying attention to how we can minimize that. And we here in our country waste about 30% of all the food just go to waste. How you can be healthier, it's really, Mark Twain said it here, I know that I need to do this, but I don't like it. I know that it's a good idea to exercise. I don't want that. Yeah? So you need help, experiment, try different things, try, step by step. Don't make big revolutions. They don't last long. Evolutionary approach works well. And evaluate, see, is this working or not? Evaluate the evidence. This is picture from the Turner Fund where we do cooking classes with our patients. And so we'll let you know when the next one is. This is just a summary, what to pay attention. Basically, be as plant-based as you can be, limit sugars, chew well, use your grandma's plate. Those are smaller plates, because if you use big plate, you will eat a lot of food. If you put it on a small plate, you will eat less, yeah? And we just need to act. Knowing is not going to help us. We just need to do the things. So here are the few obstacles: immortality illusion that I will not dwell upon, disinterest of health professionals just looking in the mirror what we do, and of course industry often opposes this. So this is scientists at work, a trace of saturated fat very bad, and then we go and eat and we don't pay attention. We forget what we did. said, I can operate, or you go on a strict diet, you better operate. Are you sure? Yes, my insurance doesn't cover strict diet. Yeah, so this is Dr. Esselstyn's reversal of advanced coronary artery disease just by diet, fully plant-based diet, no added oils. You can achieve this. And we followed about 200 patients for 4 years, and 1/4 of them can show the reversal of coronary artery disease. Yeah, so again, there are options here one can do. This is the picture of us medical professionals. What we are doing, we are mopping up the floor. We are mopping this avalanche and trickling of chronic diseases that are coming upon us. More heart attacks, more obesity, more diabetes, more high blood pressure. And we just do not address those root causes. We cannot. We need help of everybody. Then here is the industry. Yeah, I discovered the herb that can cure asthma, arthritis, and cancer. I wish it exists. It doesn't. Just one thing. How do we make a drug of it? Yeah, it's not really sufficient to use what exists. Plant-based diets are safe. They contribute to flatulence, but animal agriculture is the major driver of greenhouse gases, climate change. I could not resist not to put this. You would not believe that taxpayers of New Zealand and Germany support this kind of research, how to potty train cows so that they would decrease the risk, the release of methane, while the obvious solution is let them eat those cows. Our modern agriculture is devastating, not just for the well-being of animals, but leads to resistance of bugs. There is always this fear when the next avian flu will come, because these are natural ways how the birds aggregate. So a lot of issues with the way we do it. 3/4 of all the new pathogens, infectious pathogens, come from animals. Yeah. Bees are disappearing. I didn't know there are 66 bumblebee species in North America and Europe, and they are decreasing. What we need to do really is to focus on dietary changes. That needs to be the task of all of us, and reducing the waste. This is from recent editorial that was published in 200 leading medical journals. They all published identical editorial, and it emphasizes how important it is to pay attention to the planetary health, because that supports the health of us humans. And this is the opposition of food industry. Philip Morris buys Nabisco. Yeah, just a different business, but the same model. We need to be active. This was from the initiative to really force fast food companies to stop selling the meat that was loaded with antibiotics. I think it would be very helpful to post this in fast food restaurants so that people can immediately ask wise questions if they buy any of these foods that are considered carcinogens. We need initiative from the top, from the federal government. This is the program that was done recently. We need initiative from all, demand from our representatives to focus on food, because we will not change the health of our nation. We are spending almost 20% of gross national product for healthcare, for diseases, 80% of which we can avoid, prevent. Clearly, we want peace in the world. We want good health. We want happiness. And you would think that people would be happy, you know, those who can see in the future. However, there are no people. Yeah. Lynn Margulis is really, she died, unfortunately, leading evolutionary biologist like Charles Darwin, and says, you know, it's not about protecting the planet, it's protecting us, because if you don't have ecosystems that are healthy, we will not be healthy. You might be working outside of healthcare. You might be in media, you might be in insurance, you might be in non-profit community organizations. You can all contribute to that idea that we need to eat healthier. We benefit when we change our own self-care lifestyle, different foods. We benefit us, our families, our communities, our planet. And I'll leave you with this, that summary by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine: eat plants, keep moving, sleep well, be present, stay calm. And if you do all of those things, you will love people. And I will leave you here with Mr. Spock's logical conclusion. And I will stop here. So thank you. And let's see the questions. There are, I think, about 19. So Kelly, will you summarize some of those things? Or Lori?
Yeah, so I think Lori had a great question that she wanted to ask. So let's start with Lori.
Okay.
I can't see myself. Are you
Yeah,
able?
I can.
Oh,
I can
you know
see
what?
you.
Let me stop sharing the screen. Oh, let me do that. I don't know why I cannot see that.
There.
Did you
Thank you
kick me
so
out?
much. Thank you so
Okay,
much,
I can
Dr.
see
D.
you now, Lori.
I can
Yeah.
see you. I can see you as
Yeah.
well.
Hi.
I just wanted to say thanks. I take such hope in the fact that, you know, the choices that we make that are good for ourselves are good for the planet. And in return, the planet feeds us healthier. It's a positive, it's a win-win cycle going forward. There's so many questions, Kelly. Why don't you just take it?
Oh
Go
my
for
gosh,
it.
I know there's so many. So just so you guys know, I put in the chat my email address in case your question does not get answered. Please email me your question if you really want it answered. We will get that answered by Dr. G. So this one that I really loved, where is it? Oh. Oh, here. So the very first question I'm going to propose to you. I'm supposed to restrict sources of calcium oxalate due to kidney stones. That means eliminating virtually all vegetables. So how do I get the benefits of vegetables?
I don't think the solution is eliminating all green leafy vegetables. There are some that are higher in oxalate. If it's the stone from calcium oxalate, you want to make sure that you have plenty of calcium. Yeah. You can, if you would want, I can send you the list of the foods that are high in oxalate and high in calcium and lower in oxalate, higher in calcium. So for example, spinach would be one that is very high in oxalate and calcium, but kale and collard greens would be in another category. Yeah. And it's never just one thing. It's not just green leafy vegetables. It's what else do you eat? Yeah. What is the composition of other nutrients? So it's not like, oh, if I eat, you know, very balanced, let's say Mediterranean diet, and now I add some, you know, Swiss chard, will I get the stones? And then there are other things that are important. It's not just, you know, oxalate and calcium. It's water. Are you drinking enough water? Yeah, that's the basic thing, regardless which stone it is. And Lori, you might add some of your thoughts to this.
Well, one thought that just crossed my mind was related to the gut microbiome, and there are certain bacteria that cannot process oxalates, and so there might be a conversation around what is the health of that individual's gut microbiome and its contribution to the inability to process oxalates properly. So that's kind of an evolving area, but it's really very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. You two work so well together. Okay, so next question here, which I love. Are there foods, nutrients that should be eaten in combination for better absorption of bioavailability for the body? I believe turmeric and pepper should be eaten together for best absorption. Any other combinations?
I would say the combinations, probably the wise ones, to eat fruits as a dessert. That's very important one. That's the key component of eating in, you know, Mediterranean culture. You know, they don't ask, you know, which kind of cookie do we have, which kind of, you know, ice cream do we have for the dessert. They said which kind of fruits do we have, and that would have profound benefits of metabolic machinery. Now, you can find studies that would show, yes, if you eat this with this, you get better absorption. But ultimately, it depends what you measure and when do you measure it. You know, do you, for example, this study with calcium and oxalate, they would radioactively label calcium in kale and milk, and then you could measure how much gets absorbed. Yeah. How can you measure many of those things? Most of those things are done in vitro. They are done in animal studies. In humans, I think it's very hard to conclude that, you know, one thing would help, you know, absorption of the others. Yes, vitamin C will help absorption of iron, for example. Yeah. So there are those examples, but I would not lose sleep on, oh my God, I didn't combine this with that. I need that food for that. Yeah.
The other exciting thing is, I think, if I could jump in, is we don't necessarily lose out on the benefits of these foods if they're not absorbed well. The action of these nutrients is in the gut itself. So just that absorption factor, if you're trying to treat pain with turmeric, yeah, you want to have the pepper to help, the piperidines help with the absorption. But if your goal is health in general, there's actions that are happening in the gut itself that you don't need to worry so much about the absorption part of that.
Here's another one that I think a lot of people are concerned about. What about frozen vegetables and fruits when they're microwaved? Do they lose their nutrients when they're microwaved?
So here is the thing. Number one thing that I forgot to mention. So the studies were done with broccoli sprouts, and green onions. Those frozen vegetables retained as much of anti-carcinogenic compounds as fresh ones. So fresh and frozen. So this is very, very useful for people who are, are limited with the time to prepare, because it takes time to clean and to chop and prepare, you can use frozen. So frozen vegetables and fruits are as good as fresh in variety of things. Now, yes, you can lose the nutrients. And I mentioned in one of the slides, boiling will release some of you can lose like 50% of, isothiocyanates if you just boil them, more than 5 minutes. Yeah. If you boil them 10, 15 minutes, you don't detect any excretion in the urine because you just really damage them. Microwaving, there are clearly studies that do that. And it's usually considered less damaging to a variety of nutrients than other methods. But as I mentioned, if you heat up carotenoids, you actually get better bioavailability. So it's a good mixture of both cooking methods. You just don't want to overboil. You just don't want to overcook.
Okay, and I'm going to ask one more question, but before that, I'm going to state, like I said, I put my email in the chat. Please email me if you would like your questions answered, and I will submit those to Dr. G and Dr. Nandial, and I will get back to you with their answers. One more question. Aren't some vitamins and minerals mostly found in meat, like iron and B12? How can we make sure we get enough of these with a plant-based diet?
Lori can jump in. If you look at prevalence of iron deficiency anemia in vegans versus meat eaters, the prevalence is very similar. The difference is in the amount of storage of iron. Yeah, meat eaters will have much bigger storage. And in fact, the work at Harvard by Dr. Adam Bernstein and others have actually shown that one of the reasons why red meat is so much associated with chronic diseases, cardiovascular disease, and cancer is because of the iron that is available there, because iron is pro-oxidant. You can get iron from plant foods. That's usually not the issue. You just have to be smart in eating a lot of green leafy vegetables. Vitamin C has to be around so that the iron is in the form that is easily absorbed. B12 is a different story. If you are a strict vegetarian, you need to take a supplement because if you don't eat a lot of fermented foods, and sometimes those are unreliable sources, blue-green algae and fermented foods, it depends on the preparation. So that would be the supplement that you would have to take. And almost everybody has to take vitamin D supplement, no matter what you eat, because 80% of us here are deficient in vitamin D.
Is that the last question we're going to take, Kelly?
Yes, I think that is the last question.
All right. Well,
it's all you, Lori.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We invite you to stay engaged with us at the Osher Center via our newsletter and save the date for some upcoming events. There's a January event on how to start a mindfulness practice. In March, we have a plant-based power hour, a healthy lunch meal prep. And in June, we've got that we're going to participate with the International Yoga Day with a vino and vinyasa. So check out the website, check out the e-newsletter, and Kelly's got her information there. We're so grateful that you've joined us. We hope this has been helpful, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you,
Thanks,
Kelly.
Dr. G.
Susie. Thank you all for being here. Enjoy the evening. Go for a walk. Take good care of yourself. Stay well.